All right, so we're going to get started. I titled this Generation Guide Today's College Students because we're going to talk a little bit about who our students are today, but we're also going to talk a little bit about generations because you can't understand us now if you don't understand the past generations. Oh, wow, I know. There it is, mind-blowing. So this is the plan. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit more in depth, but then also I get to know you all a little bit so I know who I'm talking to. I'm going to give you a brief generation breakdown. We're going to play a game called Whose Generation Is It Anyway? The points don't matter, don't worry. Then I'm talking a little bit about millennials because as of right now, our iPads data shows that in 2018, 84% of our student population was born or is 24 or younger, which means the vast majority of our population is Generation Z already, but we have a little bit that's going to hit that millennial and those non-traditional students who are going to hit those other generations. And then we're going to do some caring and sharing. So I hope everyone's ready. Okay, so first up, if you don't know me, my name is Marissa Steimel. I'm the Director of New Student Initiatives. What that means is that it is literally my job to understand the incoming student population because all of our events, our programs, how we talk to them at orientation, how we interact with them at Griffin Edge, how we interact with them ahead of that is we have to be able to understand them and how we can communicate with them well before they even get here and then when they get here so that we are as effective as possible. So that is why I read up on this topic a lot and try to get to know our today's student a little bit more. All right, so I am going to talk a little bit briefly about generation breakdowns because then we're going to be doing an activity. And don't worry, I will point which paper is which because I didn't write them very strongly there. So looking back, a lot of people will designate generations as simply years. So a lot of people will say, oh, it's a designated number of years. But in reality, each generation is affected by some major life event that happens. An example, Generation Z, 1995 to 1996 is generally where you're going to see most people saying Generation Z starts. And that's because 9/11 happened in 2001, and that's a huge event that shaped that population. That was when they had could remember, and that was a huge part that shaped that generation. Each generation has a different major life event, but I'm not going to go into that because that's part of my quiz in a minute. We have silent generation, that's the folks from 1925, and I know my history folks can.
I studied earlier.
Yeah, earlier. Oh, yeah. You can like, you're wrong or you're incorrect. Yes, call me out. You're like, what is that? So silent generation, you're looking at 1925 to 1945. Baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. There's that joke going around, the okay boomer joke. Don't worry, I won't make any of them throughout this whole presentation. Generation X is our 1965 to 1979 group. Millennials, 1980 to 1995. And then Gen Z is 1996 to 2010. And again, if you research these, you'll see a lot of different sites and different areas of research where they'll tweak the start and the end years a little bit, but these are generally agreed upon years for each generation. If anyone, I'm going to go through them and I'm going to see, I love to know how many generations we have in the room, but obviously if you don't want to self-select, you do not have to raise your hand and no one will be sad. But I would just like to know what kind of perspectives we have. So I don't believe we have any Gen Zs in the room. Nope, okay, great. Millennials, I know that's me and Amber, yes, absolutely. Do we have any Gen Xers? Okay, oh, I see you, Kevin, and everyone watching at home, excellent. Okay, we got a huge Gen X population. Okay, any baby boomers? Oh, yeah. Yes, we've got some baby boomers, and there's no way that we have any silent generation. Okay, excellent, good. Okay, this is good. We've got three. We're just sandwiched in the middle. This is nice. Okay, so I hope you all know your generations well, because I'm about to say a fact, and you all are going to have to go to which generation you think it matches. So I've got Gen Z is on that little table, got Gen X up on the wall, silent generation, we've got baby boomers, and I've got millennials. I hope everyone's ready. Don't forget. Oh, I'll come back to this. Don't worry guys, I'll come back to it. The game is made up and the points don't matter, so don't stress, okay? Don't stress. All right. This generation, I'm going to start with an easy one. This generation lived through World War II. All right. Oh, wow. Yes, you are correct. Good work, everyone. Silent generation, number one, easy to go. Okay. This generation was born during the moon landing. All right, you got it, you got it. That one is tough, and I almost did JFK, the JFK assassination, but that's right on the board, and I didn't want to throw anyone off. So good, good. The past 4 presidents have all been members of this generation. It is the baby boomers, but barely, because, yes, like this close. But I like you being wrong over there. I mean, it's there, okay, no, I'm not commenting because I'm on video, but yes, okay. The Challenger exploded in the middle of this generation. Was it Challenger in 1986? Yeah.
January 28th.
So bam.
They're big important
Bam.
dates, you know the dates.
So there you go.
Snow day.
It was a snow day. Oh no. Let's see. This one's, I'm giving you this one. 9/11 and the Great Recession happened in the middle of this generation.
Wait, which Great Recession?
Yeah.
Okay, of 2008. Wow, what a year. Okay. I said 9/11. I said 9/11. That's why I put the 2 together so you wouldn't be confused. It's right here. I know. I didn't want to put anything on the wall. I didn't want physical plant to be like 9/11 and the Great Recession of 2008 happened. Yes. Ooh, I have to save that one for last. That one's my favorite. Okay. Oh, this one's rough. Children of this era were expected to be seen and not heard. Yes, but it's in the title. It's very, very specific. Ooh, okay, I like this. So they're correct. However, a lot of it flows into, and that's a phrase depending on how you're brought up.
Pity.
Okay. I like that you're just radically going to
my
a...
parents, they wish I had been that.
They wish, see, there you go, absolutely. Okay, ooh, this one's, there you go, okay. This one makes up roughly 77 million people, which is possibly the largest American population of all time, as of right now. Oh, yeah. I see you.
I'm making my way.
Oh, he's going rogue again. Oh, you're going rogue. Yes! Oh, I love this. I like this, absolutely.
Go rogue.
All right, so as of right now, baby boomers is correct. However, millennials is pretty much catching up. They're basically, they're pretty balanced, but baby boomers, that was their big claim to fame was, there's so many of us. Okay, let's see. Ooh, this one's nice. They outspend all other generations when it comes to housing, clothing, eating out, and entertainment. I see you. All right, this is good. This is the first very divisive one we had. All right, the official answer is Generation X. I know. Amber and I were researching, we found this very surprising. But yes, when it comes to actually housing, clothing, eating out, and entertainment, they're going to be spending the most, at least currently right now. Yeah, y'all. Okay, next one. Oh, this one's an easy one.
Money in Generation X.
No, but this is the generation of friends.
That's true.
They have lots of money that we can't explain.
Yeah, no one can explain that. Okay, another name for this generation is iGen. iGen. Like a little I, lowercase I, Gen. Our Gen Z folks are correct on this one.
They're so self-absorbed.
Oh no, there it is. All right, so iGen is also known as Gen Z, and we'll talk a little bit about that native population, that digital native aspect of them. So, last but certainly not least, I saved my favorite question. This generation is accused of killing everything. Mayo, shopping malls, brick and mortar stores, paper napkins, chain restaurants, beer, cereal, golf, motorcycles, home ownership, diamonds, fabric softener, and department stores. Who kills everything? All right, official answer is millennial. If you look up what have millennials killed, you will find article upon article upon article upon article about everything that we've killed with the changing into the internet stage. All right, y'all can have a seat. So I'm going to break down millennials and Gen Zs a little bit just so you can see a little bit of a comparison and some of just the major changes that have happened in just a few years. So the top row is millennial and the bottom row is Gen Z. So Gen Z has the most ethnically diverse population. So if you see only 52% of Gen Z is categorized as white. They have a very diverse population. You can see the big jump there that we had. In Gen Z, 59% of students are actually going to college, whereas millennials, only 53% went to college. However, at this point in time, millennials are the most educated generation, but that's simply because they've all mostly gone through their education at this point. And Gen Z, 46% think that people need to watch for offensive language and to actually think about what they say before they share thoughts and opinions, whether it's in the classroom, outside of the classroom, just in general, whereas 39% of millennials thought that. So there's a big move into the social justice kind of area here.
You're saying that more of the kids now are worried about what they say than they used to?
Worried about or more conscious of, oh, if I say that, that might be offensive. That might be offensive to someone who believes this. So it's becoming more of a socially conscious movement. Yes. Inclusivity. Oh, we'll get there. All right. So we're going to skip through, talk briefly, very briefly about millennials. This first picture up there, it's got two screens because millennials are used to having two screens constantly. So whether it's a phone and a laptop, whether it's a desktop and their phone, whatever it is, they're very used to and have grown up with two screens. So they're used to being able to watch TV while doing something on their phone, watch TV while doing something on their laptop, whatever it is. They are very text focused, so they'll post a Facebook status, they'll write a whole big long thing, they'd much rather text you, so they're more text focused than Gen Z. I put a picture up there to kind of symbolize that millennials are more curators and sharers. They like to share articles, they like to share opinions, they like to share information, but they're not going to actually write something out specifically. They'd rather share a photo album or share something. And they are very now focused. So they are focused in what am I experiencing now, what am I doing right now in this moment, and they're very optimistic about their current life. So that's the millennials. So those are going to be some of your non-traditional students, and that can be seen in your different interactions with them, whether you're working with them in the tutoring center, or whether you're working with them in class. But then we get to Generation Z, and there's a big flip here, even though a lot of people will mash the two generations together without even realizing it. Generation Z are the realists. They went through 9/11 and their parents went through the recession, so they've been taught from a young age that you have to work for what you want, that it's not just going to be handed to you, and that not everybody's special, and that you have to work. And that will come out later when we look at some statistics. That picture right there, I couldn't even find a picture that showed 5 screens. Gen Z is used to 5 screens at a time. So you're talking about the smartwatch, the phone, the laptop, the TV, everything is going on at the same time. They're used to navigating 5 screens, and they can, and that's what they've been raised in because they are the digital native generation. So millennials were coming into age as the internet started, or as it started picking up speed. The Generation Zs came in right there. So 1995, 1996. Right there, I've got a picture because Generation Z is very visual. Visual, visual, visual. If you put up a PowerPoint that just has text, you have lost them. You've lost them completely because they stopped reading. They are very, very visual focused, very video focused, and we'll touch that a little bit later too. I also put a photo up there. They're not curators, they're creators. They want to create. They want to be part of the process. You'll see a lot of people with YouTube channels, with blogs, with whatever it is. They want to be part of the process. They don't want to just share something. You think about TikTok, that's them creating videos and that's them creating content. That's not them just posting a photo on Facebook. I also put a little calendar there to show they are future focused. So they are thinking about the environment. They're thinking about social justice issues. They're thinking about how what they're doing now is affecting the future generations. They're also thinking about their future careers. They are very much focused into the future. Again, that comes to that realist attitude. They know that they have to think about the future and that we can't just live in the happy now and be all good to go. So that's just a brief breakdown. I'm going to have a couple slides of stats because I think statistics can show you many different things about a generation that maybe you didn't realize, but also just get a lot of information. Again, stats are what they are. You can find different research articles that will say one thing and another will say another. Tried to find ones that kind of agreed across the board. The big one here, and I'm sure all of you have heard it at some point in time, that Generation Z has an attention span of 8 seconds. There's all the jokes about like that's like a goldfish and you can't keep their attention and they don't want to pay attention and they're not listening to you. But in reality, they decide to pay attention within 8 seconds because they have grown up in a world of 5 screens. So if your screen can't get their attention in 8 seconds, they've moved on to the next screen because they're learning something and that's going to help them future-wise. They literally just want to have you give them a reason to pay attention to what you're saying. And they decide that within 8 seconds, which is, that's a quick amount. 70% watch YouTube or videos for 2 to 4 hours a day. That is a lot of video watching. And you'll see there's YouTube channels of people that are making millions of dollars being a YouTube creator. People are watching, I've seen kids who are watching YouTube videos of people playing with dolls. That's how they interact. They're used to video. So keep that in mind. 57% actually prefer saving money to spending it, and they're most concerned monetarily about the cost of higher education, which I wanted to throw out there because we're all in higher education. So again, if they're in your classroom or they're in your library, if they're in your session, and they're asking, well, why couldn't I have just researched this online? Why do I have to listen to what you say? It's because they are most concerned about paying for something that isn't giving them a benefit and helping them in their future. So that's where we have to kind of fight that battle of showing why is what we're saying important, what are we teaching them outside of what they could have learned on their own. 60% positively impact the future of the world and participate in social activism. So we talked about earlier, they're very future focused. They are participating in social justice causes. They're participating in different activism around the world, and that's 60% of Gen Z is doing that. So they are the most kind of socially active group right now. 89%, I threw this on there because it's kind of a marketing piece, but 89% will share a brand if it was a positive experience. So when you think about us as higher education and we're giving them an experience, if they can have a positive experience with a professor, with a staff member here, they're going to then share that with others because they react more positively to authentic stories in marketing, to authenticity, than a fake, just curated image that doesn't feel authentic to them. Yes.
So as a director of new student initiatives,
Yeah.
you're incentivized to give them as much swag as possible.
A little bit, you know, but we try to go not from the swag, or it's called merch now.
Oh,
Oh!
sorry, Gen X, we swag.
You swag, you know,
swag.
stuff we all get, I got you.
Because swag was free, merch is get by.
Yeah, but now you're like, oh, I got that merch. Okay, cool. But we are looking at, again, that face-to-face interaction, and I'll get to that stat. Gen Z, a lot of people assume, do not want face interaction. They're like, oh, well, they're always on their phones. They're never going to look at me in the face. They prefer face-to-face communication because they feel that they're actually getting something out of it, and a lot of that interaction. So I think next slide, I'm going to have you look at how they are going to be in the workplace, and it's huge. They want face-to-face communication with their supervisors. So when we talk about your professors or your classes, they want face-to-face interaction with you. I did this presentation for advising training, and I asked some of my student mentors, I said, hey, I'm about to present to literally faculty. How do you think, like, how would you like them to interact with you, or how do you want them to engage you in the classroom? And several of them simply said, I just wish they would introduce themselves and let us get to know them as a person at the beginning of class, or even before we even start class, because then I feel like I actually know something about them and I have a reason to listen. And that was it. That was what they wanted. They just wanted that face-to-face, that personal interaction, because they value authenticity. They don't want someone just up there lecturing and then they go home. that is not Gen Z at all. This one up here, 40% by 2020, the number of Gen Z consumers. So it's 2020, y'all. We're here. It's here. It's now. It's now. But I have this. This is a very Gen Z moment of me. If you take out your smartphone and you point it at that in your camera, so take your camera and you hold it on there, a little link will pop up at the top that you can open. And it will bring up a link at the top, and it'll bring you to a little infographic. So it's talking about Generation Z in the workplace. And again, this is a big Generation Z movement. About 20% of the workforce in 2020 is already Gen Z. So we're already looking at a huge part. I'm trying to remember the stats. I think 77% prefer face-to-face communication. Is that what it is? Bam.
Well,
Gonna redraft me.
77% expect to work harder than previous generations.
There it was. I was like, there was a 77% in there. 77% of them expect to work harder than previous generations because, again, they are the realists, and they have been told from the time that they were younger, you know, you could always lose a job. This would happen to me. But also told that. So living through the recession, being prepared to talk about college education and higher ed debt, student loan debt, they're very worried about that. So they expect that they're going to have to work harder and for longer than previous generations. That's where we're at currently. Because I want to talk about some of our limitations or strengths, depending on how you look at them. We're looking at a population that has weak socialization, but it's not because they don't want to socialize, but you've moved on from the time where people were playing outside on the street, so they got to hang out with their neighbor. You've moved on from the time even where people are planning sleepovers and having their friends come over. Well, why do I have to do that? Because I can be messaging them, I can be Zooming, I can be chatting, I can be Facebook Messenger videoing, whatever it is, and they're following each other on Snapchat, and they're following each other on TikTok. So there's less of a reason for them to then meet up with their friends, spend time with their friends. They're not just going to go hang out at Applebee's or Taco Bell or whatever it is where, you know, I'm just throwing out restaurants. Living my best life, Dad. So they're not going to say, oh, after high school or after classes get out, let's go hang out at this place. They're all going to go back to their respective areas and then Snapchat each other literally the rest of the day. So there's less of that actual socialization, but that's not because they want to be connected any less. It's just how they were raised. They do not know a time before the internet and before this was the normal. Again, the 8-second attention span, that's how they've been raised. They were raised in a world where you can get anything instantaneously. That's what Google is, that's what the internet is, that's what Amazon is. So why shouldn't they expect everything to be that way? And that's the mentality a little bit. There is a desire for individuality, and that's where we get to them as creators, because they want to be seen as an individual. The moment you tell Gen Z that they're one of a group and that they are part of a generation, you put them into a title and a box, they go, whoa, I don't think so. I'm an individual. So they are very individualized. They want to show you why they as a person are great, and they want to have that kind of, I don't know, that attitude. If you look at the social media, their Instagrams, their Snapchats, their TikToks, they're creating things and they're creating an aesthetic and they're creating a brand for themselves as an individual, and that's how they want to stand out. There is a huge reliance upon technology. They would not want you to hand them a handout. They'd much rather have you let them scan something and have it on their phone where they have it. They're much more likely to follow a link to something than keep the paper that you handed them, which gets stuck in a bag and then thrown away and they never look at it again. They're also very environmentally conscious, so giving them paper handouts when you could have done it digitally is not great. They would much rather have you share something via technology than have you give them papers on papers on papers. So there we go. They also are the most competitive. So if you can gamify anything in a classroom, I suggest you do. If you can gamify anything when it comes to tutoring, to the library, whatever it is, it makes an impact. An example would be Griffin Edge. 3 years ago, we separated them into groups, and so they just were named by groups. And then I said, this isn't fun, I don't like this. So I made them into color teams and created a color team competition. And the amount of engagement we had that was that, oh, we're in a group, okay, cool, to the amount of, oh, we're going to win the spirit stick and we're going to win this whole game and we're going to beat 700 other people, it was insane. So the amount of engagement went up in huge numbers. And so we've continued to do that and continued to hone that competition. But again, they are competitive. That is who they are as a generation because they've been told you're going to have to compete against everyone else. Remember, we're the realistic generation. They are the realists, and they are prepared to compete against people to get to what they want to be. So keeping that in mind, thinking about that in your classroom settings a little bit. How can you engage? And this is not just in the classroom because we have people who are not just faculty in here. Using technology well. There's two sides to this. People say, oh, well, I've just got to throw technology into my class. I've got to throw it into what we're teaching at the library. We have to do something with technology. Don't do it if you're doing it just to do it. If you don't do something well, if you don't think about what kind of technology would translate this information appropriately, don't do it. So because the moment you do something and you don't do it well, you've lost them even worse than if you would just not use technology in the first place. So keeping that in mind, if you're going to say, oh, hey, we're going to have a group chat, or oh, hey, we're going to do Zoom calls, you have to think about knowing how to use the technologies, whether that's training yourself, whether that's going through a training ahead of time. But if you can use it, try to use it as much as possible. Use video when possible. We are doing a lot with video through admissions and through student initiatives. And again, that's because they're going to watch a video more than they're going to read an email. Yes?
How long was their attention span for something they've chosen to watch?
Ooh, that depends. It depends on the topic. No, that's a really good question. I'd have to look into specific statistics on that. But I mean, they're willing to.
There's a sweet spot that we know.
Right. Well, there is, I mean, if you think about it, they're willing to watch a YouTube vlogger or YouTube channel, and those are 30 minutes. It all just depends on the topic. Something that you want to get their attention, no longer than a minute. That's even like our welcome videos for events or things that we do. We do Facebook Live event videos with our class of pages. So we have class of pages for each incoming class. And every Monday we do a Facebook Live video, and that's about 30 minutes. But that's people actively choosing to watch it, and they can ask questions, and it's a very interactive, you can participate into this. This is not just a static video. So 30 minutes we found is pretty kind of the sweet spot for those.
Okay.
So advertising or like, oh, hey, we're going to watch it, 1 minute or less. But if it's oh, hey, we have this video that we just want to watch really quickly in class, 4 minutes is probably going to be fine. I've got a video for you on hand, don't worry. Yes.
Better not be longer than
Oh, okay, it's longer than a minute. Don't worry, but I'm letting you watch it on your own time. So when possible, use video or images. I don't know if you've noticed, but in this PowerPoint, I've tried to use as least text as possible. And that's because I know that people don't read it. And if you do read it and you're not listening to me, then I don't want you to just be reading it and not listening to what I'm saying. Because Gen Z will not read anything you put up there if it's a big paragraph. They've just stopped. They have not. You've lost them completely. And so I still see people putting up PowerPoints with just like a screenshot of a whole text page, and I'm going, oh no, please don't. If you've learned nothing from today, please don't do that. That's all I ask. Another big one is convert static discussions. So Gen Z wants to be helping create the content, whether that's in a discussion like this. They want to share their opinions. They want to help create what the conversation is about. So anytime you can allow them to help participate in the conversation or help decide, oh, how is this class going to go, they would much rather do that than just have you start talking for 50 minutes. Because if you just talk for 50 minutes, you didn't require anything of them, and they could have just gone and read the book. End quote, my Gen Z student. So trying to make that as much as possible a joint discussion. And of course, you know, you say, oh, Marissa, I asked for feedback in my class and they all just stare at me and it's yes, depending on the topic or whether you engage them early enough or whether they don't care about whatever it is. So you also have to give them a why. If you give them a why they should be participating, that's more important to them than the what. If they can get behind the why, like, oh, this is going to help me with my test. This is going to help me with my future career. You're going to get them to participate more fully. And this last one is my favorite. I think there is always this big divide among generations. I think there's some quote about every generation thinks the generation before them is whatever, the generation after them is dumb. Whatever it is, there's some weird divide between generations, like, oh, you didn't have it as hard as me, and when I was young, I played with sticks. And I go, okay, all right, why are we fighting each other? If you can show them that you're willing to learn from them and that you're willing to interact with them and not treat them like they are dumb and that they are just young and that their opinions don't matter, they respond more to that authentic interaction than authority figures that are just talking at them. So again, trying to participate, trying to learn from them as much as possible, you're going to actually engage with them more effectively. This one I want you to pull up and save for later to watch. It's a great, very short video. I think it's maybe 4 minutes long. And it's a Gen Z with his parent, with his father. They wrote a book together. And then also a researcher who I actually got to see present in a conference. She's written also a book, iGen. It's fantastic. And it's produced by Time magazine. So they produced it and they talk a little bit about how Gen Z is going to change the world. So watch it later, okay?
Generations are really about cultural change. By studying generations, we can get an idea of how growing up now as a child or a teen is different from it was for, say, the Gen Xers growing up in the 80s or the Boomers growing up in the 1960s.
Looking specifically at numbers, we define Gen Z as those born between 1995 and 2012.
1995 just happens to be the year the internet was commercialized, so that also captures the generation of people who were born after the internet existed, who don't know a world without the internet. Compared to previous generations, they spend a lot more time communicating with their friends electronically, and they also spend less time hanging out with their friends in person.
My generation, we're truly digital natives. We've really only known a world where our phones are smart. You know, we turn to technology for a lot of things, whether it be entertainment, research, education. It's truly just part of who we are.
I'm not entirely convinced that iGen's skill with social media is going to be a complete positive. It's also linked to depression and anxiety and unhappiness, especially for people who are spending too much time on social media, who are comparing themselves to others too much.
You know, people always talk about taking digital detoxes and stepping away for a little bit, and I don't know if it's necessarily cutting out the phone for a month at a time, but understanding that it's okay to put down your phone for a couple hours, don't have it at the dinner table, try not to be on your phone right before bed. There's just time and a place for everything, and I think understanding that is really important.
I think something that parents can do to help with this anxiety that phones and information overload is really helping them sort of analyze and prioritize the information is what we find is something that's definitely needed with this generation.
At the moment, what many people think of when they think of iGen is a teen or a young adult, looking at his or her phone. But I think they'll become known for other things as time goes on.
One of our traits that, is very upfront with my generation is that we're very, very realistic. At a young age, we were thrown into a world that you could say wasn't the prettiest. We grew up amongst the 2009 recession after 9/11, and our parents didn't tell us we could necessarily be whatever we wanted. They told us that it's a hard world out there, you're gonna have to work your butt off, and if you're not willing to, there's plenty of others that will.
Gen Z entering the workforce, it's going to be a lot of change. For Gen Z, if I can log on and log in, I'm at work. So I think the physical office is really going to be challenged. Another thing that we know about this generation that they're really going to challenge is the pace at which things get done. And everyone talks about work-life balance. I got my work and my life, and work's from 9 to 5, and then your life, and how do we balance the two? What I love about Gen Z is they just don't think it works, and it really hasn't worked. What they go for is work-life blend, where work and life are 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
By spring of their senior year, iGen teens are less likely, compared to previous generations, to have their driver's license, to work at a paid job, to go out on dates, to drink alcohol. And we've already seen this with millennials in young adulthood, taking longer to settle into careers, to marry, to have children, and so on. So the whole developmental trajectory is slowed down.
Gen Z is by far the most diverse generation ever, and we're also the most interconnected around the globe. And part of the reason is, now with our generation, when something happens, the entire world finds out immediately through social media, through hashtags. We're always connected to each other, so we feel as though whether it happened in the same building or 1,000 miles away, it is immediately affecting us because we hear about it, and so we feel obligated to help and be a part of the situation, whether it's positive or negative.
They are also the one that values equality the most, whether we're talking about race or gender or sexual orientation or transgender issues. They're really much more open and focused on equality.
We really do not fear failure. So whether it be through political activation or entering new workplace or trying new things, we're willing to try something and fail.
And this is gonna have a great impact on the other generations. For the rest of us who have been so cautious, that's gonna really rub off to get us to step outside our box and maybe try some new things.
All right, so really quickly, I want you to pair with people you didn't come with. So you gotta branch out a little bit and talk a little bit about how can you use this in your specific areas. All right, we're gonna come back in, y'all. Does anybody want to share anything that they talked about, like a quick vignette? Like a little touch, a little tab, a little tidbit?
It didn't say group and share.
Okay, wow, you're not wrong. I will share a couple things that I've heard from different presentations that I've given, talking about doing Zoom office hours, so having hours where maybe students can't come in because they have class during your office hours, but you have a set hour each whenever, and you can Zoom in with people so they can ask their questions. So one professor suggested that. Another professor has the class take notes all together in a Google document as they lecture, and so then he can go back and look later and see, oh wow, they all missed this major point that I said. Let me just make sure I touch on that in my next class. And then some people will take more aggressive notes. Someone will type in there, oh, I missed that, what did they say? And so he uses that as an option. So there's definitely different ways you can use technology. Another uses a game, kind of a game system. Other people say, oh, I start with the why, like why is this class important? Specifically, why is the topic today that we're talking about important? And that kind of starts with the why, so then they kind of have something to go off with the rest of the class. But those are just some examples. I know the struggle is if they're watching the video, but they didn't take any notes, how is that helpful? So touching into that. So food for thought. If anyone comes up with great ways to solve all the world's problems, let us know. I did want to end on this because it's one of my biggest things. We aren't going to be able to build a better future unless we appreciate the differences of the generations before us. So if you're in the workplace at this point, you're going to be working with 3 generations. We all work in the same place. We've got 3 generations represented. We're going to have Gen Z in our workplace in just a few years. If we can't appreciate those differences and instead make it sort of a battle like this, so if we're not showing colleagues who haven't grown up in a digital world, hey, this is how you use Google Docs, or oh, hey, I noticed you haven't used this Excel sheet. This is something that I learned and I can teach you how to do it. And they can teach us about what they have experience in. So you need to appreciate those differences. And so that's what I always want to end on because I think it's very, very true. So that being said, thanks for attending. This is from Schitt's Creek. If you haven't watched the show, you should. It's great. And that's Schitt's Creek, SCHITTS. It's on Netflix. It's iconic. You should watch it. Okay. Okay. Dang it. Okay. There it is. So we'll catch up later. I'll hook you up to some Netflix and you can watch some shows. Anyone have any questions? Yes.
This is for everyone here, but where is this going to be available for our colleagues and others?
The Center for Teaching and Learning website, we're going to be putting all of the CTL presentations on there.
So the question was, where is this available for after this? And it's going to be put on the Center for Teaching and Learning website. Any other questions? Feedback, concerns, thoughts, like antidotes that you know about Gen Z that you'd like to share? Struggles? I'm open to everything right now.
Well, I think this would be something that should
like that.
I think everybody should see it. You
Yep.
know, something that we don't think about.
Instead of, instead of complaining, we should be adapting.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was the quote before this. That was it. There it is.
Oh, I didn't read it because I just took a picture of it. I'll look at it.
You'll look at it later? Okay. All right. There you go.
Compound on this comment about adaptability. I find that we also have to make sure that our students who may be used to a type of interaction also have to learn the old school stuff,
Mhm.
is where I find myself absolutely doing. Because just because I posted it doesn't mean they'll watch it either.
Mhm.
And so, and some things are easier to learn low tech. So I
Mhm.
feel like we both need to learn both worlds.
Yes. Okay. So I love this. I'm going to make sure it's on video or on camera, whatever. So the comment was that students also need to learn to adapt to some things that are more going to be learned better or more efficiently, low tech. Yes, more easily. Those are the words I was looking for. Thank you. And so kind of finding that middle ground. Because I agree. I mean, I see that in my work environment as well. You can always learn from both ends. Gotta teach them too, you know.
Well, and it's, I mean, the research, and I say this to my students because I'll fill the board and they want to get out their phone and take a picture. I'm like, no, no, no. Research shows if you write this down, you're going to have the kinetic response. And you're going, even if you never look at those notes again, the fact that you are physically writing them down is in your brain in a different way, in a deeper way. So you need to do that.
That's huge. Don't worry, I will be reaching out to all of the faculty to work on our academic presentations for Griffin Edge, where we can teach them these things before they even start. You know? Yeah, by we I mean the faculty, because I don't give the academic presentations, because I don't teach the class. So it's on you. You got this. I believe in you.
Well, then as a Gen Xer, will this be available in my local video store?
Yes, I can make it available at your local video store called the website and the Center for Teaching and Learning. There you go. All right, we're good?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Woo.